Imagine going to sleep perfectly healthy and waking up the next morning with a chronic disease. Your body hasn't changed, you feel exactly the same, but overnight you became a patient. This shift occurs on paper. A bureaucratic committee decides to change the diagnostic threshold, instantly moving the boundary between healthy and sick without any change in your actual biology. I'm Rex Ballard from Shasta Unfiltered, and we serve the North State with honest news. Today, we're looking at how ordinary aging was turned into a medical condition. This chart shows the average number of daily prescriptions taken by different age groups, with a sharp spike right around retirement age. Once a person crosses 65, they are routinely prescribed between 5 and 8 different medications every single day. We have to ask ourselves, are human bodies failing at staggering rates? Or did the medical industry intentionally move the goalposts to ensure we never actually reach the finish line of health? To understand the modern pharmaceutical business model, you have to look at the math. Over the last few decades, the diagnostic thresholds for our most common conditions have been systematically lowered. For decades, high blood pressure was defined as 140/90. In 2017, guidelines dropped that target to 130/80. That single administrative change instantly classified an estimated 30 million healthy adults as hypertensive. The same strategy was applied to blood sugar. The threshold for diabetes dropped from a fasting glucose of 140 to 126. Then they lowered it again to create a new category called prediabetes. Now, roughly 1 in 3 American adults fits the diagnosis. This graph illustrates what happened with cholesterol. The acceptable total limit fell from 240 to 200. With one stroke of a pen, 42 million Americans were told they needed medical intervention. Even bone health was redefined. Osteoporosis used to be diagnosed primarily based on an actual history of bone fractures. Then it shifted to a rigid density test metric, a T-score of -2.5, regardless of whether the patient had ever broken a bone. They also added an intermediate category called osteopenia to label even more women as pre-diseased. Drugs designed to treat these newly invented categories, like Fosamax, immediately became major commercial successes. By simply tweaking core vital signs, the industry manufactured tens of millions of highly reliable customers. They expanded their market by billions without having to invent a single new molecule. The most aggressive version of this strategy targets the passage of time itself. Muscle mass, bone density, and certain hormone levels naturally decline as we age. Past generations understood these as expected life transitions, but today they are framed as medical deficiencies requiring chemical correction. Natural male aging was aggressively rebranded as a medical condition called low T. This graph tracks U.S. testosterone sales. Fueled by permissive prescribing guidelines and heavy television advertising, the market exploded from a few $100 million to roughly $2 billion in less than a decade. Menopause, a completely natural transition, was similarly packaged as an estrogen deficiency disease. Women were told they needed hormone therapy to protect against aging, creating a recurring market worth up to $25 billion. If you look closely at the expert panels writing these new rules, you consistently find high percentages of members with financial ties to the manufacturers selling the treatments. The system functions as a highly optimized business model. By expanding the definition of abnormal, medical institutions convert ordinary human aging into a source of chronic, recurring revenue. When you apply these strict, youthful numerical thresholds to people in their 70s and 80s, the result is severe polypharmacy, the practice of stacking multiple prescriptions on a single older patient. Combining statins, aggressive blood pressure medications, and osteoporosis drugs in elderly bodies carries a steep physical toll. This chemical cocktail is a leading driver of adverse drug events, dizziness, dangerous falls, and cognitive decline. When those drug-induced side effects put a senior in the hospital, the system responds by ordering more tests, more interventions, and usually even more medication. The pharmaceutical companies profiting from this cycle spend hundreds of millions of dollars on federal lobbying each year. They consistently rank as the top industry spenders in Washington, fighting to protect their pricing power. Pushing vital signs around on a lab chart might expand market share, but stacking 5 to 8 daily prescriptions on an older adult rarely improves their actual functional independence or quality of life. Here in Shasta County, those national guidelines flow straight into our local clinics. You should approach any newly lowered diagnostic cutoff with serious skepticism, especially as you get older. Ask your doctor for absolute risk reduction figures. Make them explain the difference between true disease pathology and the natural variations that happen as your body ages. Adequate protein intake, resistance training, consistent sleep, and cutting out ultra-processed foods remain your most powerful tools for handling age-related changes. The medical-industrial complex largely ignores these lifestyle interventions because a daily walk and lifting weights do not generate a recurring revenue stream. A lab number is not your destiny, especially when the target was set by a committee with financial interests. Personal responsibility is still the best medicine available, and it doesn't require a prescription. If you value honest reporting and uncensored perspectives, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and visit us at shastaunfiltered.com.